People have just kind of fallen asleep at the wheel when it comes to their marriages. The sheer numbers of couples that are ending up in crisis and or those that are just functionally coexisting, it's a rampant epidemic in the church.
Welcome to the Grace Marriage Podcast. I'm Brad Rhodes.
And I'm Marilyn Rhodes. We're here to help you build a marriage that's stronger, more connected, and full of grace.
I'm Rick Dayton, joining Brad and Marilyn as we bring you weekly conversations designed to inspire and equip you to live intentionally in your marriage.
We'll share practical tips, powerful stories, and strategies to help you and your spouse grow closer and thrive together.
So whether you're just starting out or have been married for years, there's always room to grow. Let's do this together. This is the Grace Marriage Podcast.
Grace Marriage has been around for coming up on 10 years, 12 if you think back to the early iterations of some of the pilot programs, but it takes an entire team of people to help put it together. And we want you to meet some of the people who are working to make sure that Grace Marriage is available to more people all the time. And right now, Brad, we are delighted to be able to go remotely to another state and to bring in people through the power of Zoom. And I want you to introduce some of the great members of your team.
Well, Jeremy Coward and his wife, Wendy, just a gift to Grace Marriage, a gift as a friend. Thousands of marriages are being impacted through his work. He has a powerful marriage testimony and is an encouragement to marriages everywhere.
Well, Jeremy and Wendy, we are so glad that you all are here. Thanks for your time.
Of course. Thanks for having us.
So first of all, explain your role. Jeremy, and we'll ask Wendy the same question. What's your role with Grace Marriage? If you were to meet somebody in an elevator and you got 15 seconds to tell them what you do, what do you say to them?
I help the church in America make marriage ministry primary, make it a pillar of the church, not just another program at the church.
Wendy, same question. What do you tell people about your role with Grace Ministry, whether it's in a formal or an informal capacity? What do you tell people?
I support my husband in making marriage ministry a pillar.
Yeah. So what does it mean to be a pillar, Jeremy? What does it mean to do that? I mean, we think about ancient Rome and we think about the Colosseum and we think about Greece and all these, columns that are there in those buildings. They have a purpose in addition to being beautiful. And I think that's sort of where you're going with marriage too, right?
It is. When I think of marriage being the foundational relationship of our family. And then when I look at what makes up the church, it is families. And so I look at the church. So rather than, again, like I said earlier, being a program at the church, I look at the church making marriage the pillar, meaning that it is something they stand on as the church. Healthy families, and that starts at that healthy marriage level.
We did a tour of the Holy Land about a year and a half ago, and sometimes you look back and there's such a huge Roman influence even there throughout Jerusalem and throughout Israel and things like that. But these buildings would not have stood had it not been for these giant columns of granite, these giant columns of stone, that there was a structural function to it as well. And without even a piece of that stone, the whole thing comes toppling down on itself. I hear you saying the same thing. Without marriage, we've got a significant problem as a country, as a society, as a church, as a people, as a couple. We're in trouble without that, aren't we?
Absolutely.
A pastor in Atlanta told me, he said, I realize if our marriages don't work, nothing we do works.
Yeah. So what are you hearing from churches then? What are you hearing as you're going about, as you're talking to people, as you're visiting with people? What are they sharing with you?
I think overall there is a general excitement about the work. I mean, I think most pastors I interact with on the daily basis it's becoming overwhelmingly clear to them that there is the need to help the families in the church. I mean, if you talk to any pastor or pastoral care pastor on staff, just the sheer numbers of couples that are ending up in crisis and or those that are just functionally coexisting, that it's a rampant epidemic in the church. And I think there's just a general excitement about a structured pathway that can help them take better care of their marriages.
Wendy, how long have y'all been married? Exciting. How many years?
Almost 23.
So if 24 years ago somebody sat down with you and they had some wisdom for you, what do you wish that they would have told you about being married to Jeremy?
That it would be a wild ride. And that it would be filled with trials and it wasn't like just getting married wasn't going to solve our problems, or what our problems were at the moment. I think we both kind of went in thinking marriage and a wedding, everything would be great. So maybe preparing us better for the trials that would come.
Did you also realize at that time that there's far more to it than just the big party of the wedding and the reception and the honeymoon? I mean, that's what most people are thinking about when they first get married, right? They're thinking a week out. They're thinking 10 days. We're going to be in the Bahamas coming up next week. We can't wait to be married. They're not thinking about 6 months down the line. They're not thinking about 7 years down the line. They're not thinking about kids going to college and becoming grandparents. I mean, how do we change that, Wendy, for people that they start to look longer term as they're getting married?
Well, I think some of that starts with marriage prep and then walking alongside. I think pairing people with mentors or people in their, like we've been looking at that at our church, connecting older married couples with the younger ones so they can walk alongside of them, do life with them. But yeah, we went in thinking, woo, a party and a big fancy vacation. And then we got slapped right in the face with all kinds of things up front and didn't really have any resources for that. So I think providing resources, and Grace Marriage in our church is really doing that for people.
Jeremy, one of the things I love when I go to a wedding is that when the bride and groom decide that they want to do sort of an anniversary dance with everybody that's there, they say to all the married couples, come out on the dance floor with us. Bride and groom are out there in the middle. Everybody who's married comes out, and they start playing a piece of music. And they said, okay, everybody who's been married for a year, please go sit down. And you see 3 or 4 couples go sit down. They say, everybody who's been married 5 years or less, please go sit down. And now you got another 10 couples that sit down. Everybody that's 10 years or less, go sit down. And before you know it, you're getting to 30 years. You're getting to 40 years. You may have 1 or 2 couples that are out there that are 50 years that they've been married, and they're dancing alongside this couple that's been married for 3 hours, right? One of the things I love is that when you get to the end of that, the DJ will hand the microphone to the couple that's been married for 56 years and say, what advice do you have for these young people? Have you seen that? I mean, we need to do that all the time. And I get the sense that's what Grace Marriage is trying to do. Boil down 56 years worth of loving experience to say, it wasn't always great, but you know what? This is perfect. This is what we had hoped for. Am I right on that?
Yeah, that is right. I've never been to a wedding where they've done that, but what a beautiful picture of it. And I would like to experience that. But yeah, I would just say that really as a ministry, just really trying to build and develop a growth mentality. Like, so nothing in our lives, whether it's our tomato plants, our muscles, our finance, nothing grows without ongoing intentionality. So it's really about changing the culture of the church so that people are seeing the significance and what it means to continually invest over time, so that 30, 40, 50 years into marriage, your marriage is continuing to grow, not decline. And yes, I think that's a platform like Grace Marriage. That's exactly what we're trying to do with the church, is help them. It's a paradigm shift that needs to occur, but that's what we're shooting for.
Why is it that people are so starved for more information about after that big vacation that you were talking about, Wendy? After that is done, that there's just nothing there. Why, people are starving for it, aren't they?
I think we're in the loneliest, most disconnected generation ever. I think we have things like social media and our phones, but it's just causing loneliness. That's what we're experiencing anyways in our church, is anytime there's an event that brings everyone together, it's packed. People are lonely and starving for sure.
And marriages too. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that, yes, they're sleeping in the same bed, they're eating at the same table, but they're lonely even in their marriages.
Yes, I think people have just kind of fallen asleep at the wheel when it comes to their marriages, and they think that, you know, somehow it's just going to come easy. They can just put it on autopilot, and then somehow it's going to turn into this beautiful relationship. And it just never seems to happen that way. So whether it's youth sports, hobbies, taking care of aging parents, I mean, we all deal with things in life. And I think if couples aren't coming together intentionally and often, we just kind of do that slow drift that we talk about. And then all of a sudden, yeah, you end up with lonely marriages.
So how do you do that? How do you do that at Grace Marriage? What's different about this company, about this program, about this ministry than what else is out there?
Honestly, it's the ongoing piece. I mean, there are there's a couple things. So the ongoing piece is huge. You know, if most churches, if they do interface with anything marriage related, it's normally a 6-week class. 6-week program. Maybe you'll bring a conference, or conference once a year, bring in a speaker once a year. But there really isn't anything out there that's providing that ongoing structured pathway. That's one thing. The second thing I would say that's really special is that everything we do hinges on the grace of Jesus Christ. So what we see a lot of times within the marriage space, and there are amazing resources out there, but there are a lot of times we can fall into kind of this tit for tat mentality or this performance-based marriage that we reference, where you've got husbands and wives loving one another based on what they are or not getting from their spouse. And, so it's like, well, I'll love you if you're doing this for me, and vice versa. And so then all of a sudden it's not fueled by grace. So I think it's, what Brad and Marilyn have done and what we've created in the material is just this beauty of reminding people of the grace, not only to receive it, because I think we can all do that pretty well, but then what does it look like extended horizontally to another imperfect person who's going to let us down, who's going to hurt us, who's going to fail us, and learning to love one another in spite of those things. And I think that's really unique and something very special about our material.
Wendy, was there ever a time in the 23 years that you've been married that you looked at Jeremy and said, hey, there's got to be more to this, that there's got to be more to being married than where we are? And that's not to say you didn't have a great marriage the whole time, but was there a time that either of you felt that way?
Yesterday. No. Yeah, we have had a rough marriage. Our marriage has been very hard. And the first 12 years, I didn't like him very much. And I was just doing what I knew was the right thing, but it didn't come easy. And we've had lots of trials and lots of problems. So the answer is yes.
What changed?
Woof. I guess repentance and forgiveness. And then Jeremy made a lot of changes throughout, but most in the last 10 years, Jeremy's made the most changes, been more intentional, more loving. And honestly, that is when his conviction to do ministry in the marriage space came in, was about 10 years ago.
Jeremy, what changed for you?
God broke me. I mean, it's one thing to have given my life to the Lord at 25, and we haven't talked much about our past and history and childhoods and all that, but both Wendy and I brought a lot into the marriage. And as Wendy mentioned earlier, I think there was this maybe naive belief that somehow marriage was going to be the answer to all of our problems. And
some
so
elixir,
immediately,
right? Yeah, some salve that all of a sudden was going to make it all better.
And yes, and Rick, and I'll tell you, what actually happened was the exact opposite. It brought everything to light. And so we struggled a lot for our first 8 years. And, and yes, I was saved. I loved God. I loved my wife, but I really didn't know how to do marriage. And I hadn't seen it done well really in my life. In fact, I come from a twice broken home. So yeah, it was just, I had to allow God to break my spirit and realize that nothing I was ever going to do was really going to create the marriage that I wanted. And until God broke my spirit and just helped me to learn humility through, servanthood. I mean, it was that really put me on a different trajectory of how to love Wendy well.
So Wendy, was yours a situation where your marriage was quarrels and disagreements, or was yours a marriage of distance and just separation? Or maybe it was all of the above.
Yeah. It was all of the above. There was a lot of sin happening in our marriage. There was adultery, and there was pornography, and there was some things like that caused distance and separation. And so until those came to light, until there was repentance, and then there could be forgiveness, and then we could start our healing journey, which we always say looks a lot like this. We were always going up, but we had a lot of downs on that path. But probably I think the adultery was in 11?
2008.
Well, it was in 8, but the confession was in 11. So it's really been an uphill climb since 11.
How do you rebuild trust after that happens? I mean, that is one of those things that everybody asks, and people who are there right now are saying, is it possible for me to trust this person again? How did you do that?
Yeah, so it is possible. It took a lot of work on both parts. I would say what I tell my friends that are walking that path is I say that my husband was a broken man and he was repentant, And so anything I asked, he provided. And so that there was maybe a 1 to 2 year journey of, hey, can I see the receipt from lunch today? Hey, where are you? We had rules like if I called, he answered no matter where he was. If it was a meeting, I'm more important, those kind of things. We had just some boundaries that we agreed on in counseling, and those were honored and met until we got to a place. Also, I will say I had to let go, because being a private detective is not what I signed up for. So I just had to recognize that Jeremy had his own walk and he answers to the Lord, and I just had to let go and just allow space for him to fail and trust the Lord and Jeremy in the process. So yeah, it was hard, but today I 100% fully trust my husband.
So, Wendy, you talked about Jeremy's repentance. Jeremy, I want you to talk about how she extended forgiveness to you, because it's got to be both people. It can't just be one.
It was.
Without one, the other one, without both, it doesn't work, right? I mean, so how did she do that? How did she show that to you?
Well, I think she just kind of stated that even. I mean, so it was time for me. I had to roll up my sleeves and really work hard and fight for my marriage, obviously. So, where I walk through life with a lot of men who maybe are in similar shoes, one of the things I hear and I heard often was, well, man, it seemed like your wife was babysitting you. So if I said, for example, I'm going up the road to go to Kroger to get groceries or going to Subway, there was an immediate almost thought that Wendy didn't know if she could trust that. So, doing things like taking a photo of me, we had a no cash policy. So doing things like that to build back into where what was coming out of my mouth was actually true. And I would just say that as that path went forward, Wendy just extended the grace by, like she just said, not feeling like she had to micromanage my life and or be this detective, follow every trace. As I was doing what I needed to be doing, as she was leaning into the Lord for what that grace and forgiveness looked like, we just kind of met. But it definitely was a path.
Wendy, how long did you walk through this saying, okay, this is looking better, but I don't want to get my hopes up? I mean, because you'd been heartbroken before. I mean, you had hit sort of that bottom before. I mean, were there times along the way that you said, I'm not going to get my hopes up. I'm not going to get my hopes up?
I think there was probably a season in that first year or two where I held it loosely and allowed space for him to fail. And I kind of, in my mind, expected that he would, I guess. I had just kind of prepared myself for that because it had been a long journey of not being honest. However, I will say after about a year or two, it was, I don't doubt him. If he says, I'm pure from pornography, I believe him. I don't look anymore. There's been no checking. If he says he's going somewhere, I believe him. And I get to watch him walk that out every day with Grace Marriage. I get to watch him walk it out with other men. So his integrity and his character is a whole big part of that. If he's walking along doing life with men who have been adulterous to their spouse, it wouldn't make much sense if he wasn't being in integrity. So I've just and I've enjoyed watching that line up.
Sounds like you all have had two different marriages, two completely different marriages.
Actually, I think it's been like 5 or 6, but yes.
100%, Rick. I mean, it's, if you'd asked me, in our second year of marriage, or even thought this idea that I'd be basically screaming for marriage around our country, I mean, I would have laughed at you. And now it's how I want to spend the rest of my life. So it is polar opposite of what we had. And that's really what we try doing as a couple, is just being that source of hope and encouragement. And I mean, if God can redeem our marriage, there isn't one out there that he can't. And it's crazy how he'd taken such a messed up couple, two messed up individuals, put us in marriage together, made a mess of the marriage. And now where we're tracking, there's no other possible way to explain it other than the grace of Jesus Christ, which then is just a great opportunity to point people to God's goodness. So it's a lot of fun.
So, Wendy, how we talked about 23 years ago, 24 years ago, what was the advice that you wish somebody had given you? What's the advice right now that you give to somebody else after you have walked this road that's been up and down and up and down and rocks falling off the side of the cliff and feeling like they're throwing them at you sometime? What do you say to somebody else? How can you share what you've walked?
I say it's worth it. And I say your children are watching, and what you model to them is what they're going to do. And so I hope that today my kids would say thank you, and I think they would. But I think they would say thank you for showing them something different and that is worth fighting for. And I think I would say it's not going to be easy, but it's going to be worth it. And we are to look different. People are to look at our marriage and say, what do they have? I want it. And then it should be a model of Jesus. So that's my hope for people. And that's what I would say.
Jeremy, I am a huge hardcore baseball guy, and in listening to you, I'm just waiting for you to say, I consider myself, the luckiest man on the face of the earth. Lou Gehrig, right? I mean, it was Lou Gehrig's, at the end of his career, that's what he said. And I feel that coming from you too. I feel like you had a second chance or a third chance or a fourth chance or a fifth, whatever it was, but that you're a different person now.
100%. You have no idea. I mean, you're just meeting me, but I came this close to watching another man put my two boys to bed. And I'm not going to have it. I wasn't going to have it. And that's really where the rubber hit the road for me. And really just, again, that's kind of at the same time when God broke me and just put me on a different trajectory. And am I thankful? Oh my gosh, yes. And I mean, every day I consider myself so fortunate that, I mean, I look at the statistics and we really should have been just another one of them. And yet here we are now on a completely different path. And yeah, I mean, I get little goosebumps when I think about where we were, where we're today, and where we're going. It's incredible work.
Yeah. And I've had the privilege of getting to know both of them, and, their kids, both met one of them, and it's like their kids love Wendy. Their kids adore Jeremy. They have an amazing family. They have an amazing marriage. And it's the miracle God did in their marriage. I mean, the fruit that's coming from it is just starting. And I know more about Wendy's past and Jeremy's past. And I couldn't be more proud of both of them individually and as a couple, and consider it a profound honor to be friends and to working with him in this mission. And God can do amazing things in individual marriages, and he can do the same amazing miracle across this country in churches and couples. So what God did in his marriage encourages us both of what we expect to see happen in this country in the marriage space.
Well,
right.
Wendy and JC, this is not easy to talk about. And I'm sure for you, you're kind of tearing off the Band-Aid when you go back down these paths, right? You'd like to put that in the rearview mirror, and the rearview mirror is this size. The windshield in front of you is this size, right? We want to look through this rather than concentrating on that. But what you have done today, your willingness to share that story will help so many people, because you have given grace. You have also walked through that issue of repentance, but you've given hope, and you have shared your story in a way that so many other people who are saying, I can't, I just can't. Now maybe they can look at it and say, I can, because you were willing to talk about it. So thank you both for your willingness to do this. Thank you for your abundance of talents to Grace Marriage and to each other. And we just really, really appreciate you being part of the podcast today.
It's our honor. Thanks for having us. And yeah, this has been great.
Consider myself, the luckiest man. Just go ahead and practice that. It'll feel natural here in there we go. Just a couple of days. Wendy, thank you very, very much again for being with us today and helping to be part of Grace Marriage. We appreciate you both. Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
This is just another one of those stories. We try to bring you guests who come on, and sometimes they're a pastor and his wife. Sometimes it's a former basketball star who has fallen and hit rock bottom and realized that rock is like we see in Psalm 40, that we have fallen into a pit, and that rock that is there is the bedrock that is God, that is Jesus. And that is there. It gives us something to put our feet upon so that we can stand. We're going to put a new song in our heart. It may not be the one we knew from before, more, but God is doing that, and God is helping us to get to that point. That's what Grace Marriage is all about. That's what grace is about. And if you want to find out how to get more grace in your marriage, we encourage you to walk along with us at Grace Marriage. Tell other people about the podcast. Share it with them. Share Jeremy and Wendy's story with them to give them hope, to let them know it's not futile. You can do this. With God's help, you can do these things. We'll see you next time on the Grace Marriage Podcast.
Thank you for joining us on the Grace Marriage Podcast. We really hope you're feeling inspired to take intentional steps to grow in your marriage.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with a friend. Your support helps us spread the message of grace and reach even more couples.
And if you have a moment, please leave us a review. Your feedback means a lot to us and helps others discover the podcast.
To learn more about how you can grow in your marriage, visit us at gracemarriage.com. Keep building stronger, grace-filled marriages.
We'll see you next week on the Grace Marriage Podcast. Until then, keep growing in grace.